Do you want to there we go.
Yep. There we go.
Good evening. Welcome to the podcast for the Non-League Network. Pat here. I will be your host for the podcast. We're going to be talking to Dave, who is the founder of the Non-League Network, and Tony Kinnear, who's joining us as a scout and a voice, who is going to be giving us advice and giving you some tips for the best performance that you can give in front of a scout. Tony, Dave, welcome. I'd love to give you a bit of time to introduce yourselves.
Yeah, I'll jump in first. Yeah, I'm Dave. I'm the founder of the Non-League Network. Still trying to play, but at 33, I've had recurring injuries and just life just gets overwhelming, doesn't it? But yeah, still trying to play, still trying to get fit and back to it. I actually thought of the Non-League Network a couple of years ago when I moved to Scunthorpe. With no contacts, no highlight videos, couldn't find a team. My girlfriend, who was from Scunthorpe, posted on Facebook, and that's the only way I actually found a team to play for, which basically led me to the idea of starting this network. And that's me.
Thanks, Dave. Tony, your turn.
Well, yeah, I'm Tony Kinnear. I'm a scout analyst in football, work in the professional game. Worked in the professional or semi-professional game for sort of 15 years, I think. Now all told, maybe a bit longer. Currently at Derby County as a first-team scout. I also work for the FA on their referee development pathway. So that looks at referees trying to transition from the part-time game, so sort of National League level, National League North and South level, into the full-time game. So I support the FA on that. So that gives me a little bit of an insight into the non-league. And I've previously worked in the non-league as kind of a board advisor, scout analyst, about a decade ago now was last involvement. Substantially in the non-league, but I do right now also input into a non-league team and support them with scouting and looking for players periodically. So yeah, I've always had an interest in the non-league and the non-league level, and obviously players coming through from the non-league. At Derby at the moment, I don't look at the non-league so much, but it's always a level that fascinates me and interests me, and I always make sure, even if I'm not scouting for a non-league team, I'm always looking at non-league games. I was at a game last night, a non-league game, because I do for Derby with the international break. So yeah, I think that kind of covers off my background.
Brilliant.
Also worked in Scotland. Worked in Scotland as a head scout in the Scottish Championship.
Nice. Superb, gents. I feel like I want to say something about myself. I've played football in Belgium, in England, in Spain. I've played at the non-league levels. I played for university teams, and I'm that old that I play vets as well, and ended up being that poor that I would play Sunday league as well. So, all forms of football is always interesting to me. I'm a massive fan of non-league level. Would love to go and watch more Premiership games. Can't afford to do so. Go and watch some non-league stuff, and they are really, really improving the levels. So that's both forms in terms of men and women as well. So very interested in getting involved in the community. Yeah. Tony, thank you in particular. We're here to discuss. It's happened to a lot of players who've shown a lot of promise. They've gone through the ranks, they're going through the juniors, and to a certain extent, it's very, very difficult to get through and go into pro or semi-pro levels. And then you end up having a look at how you overcome release in the football world and being released from non-league. And in light of that, we want to give some of our listeners, some of our viewers, the best opportunities to actually be seen by scouts like yourself. And that's where we're looking at this podcast, because overcoming that release is a very difficult thing to do. It might be that they're just needing a chance to see someone like yourself and to have a chance to get in there. Do you have any insights into maybe a player that you've spotted or someone that you've come through that might have not look like they were going to do it in the first place, and overcome that and actually being able to get to a decent level, as you would say.
I think there's plenty of examples of that throughout the game, and there'd be players, the likes of Jack Vardy, Chris Smalling, Tyrone Mings, Jared Bowen's probably the one that springs to mind most for me, just in terms of him coming through at Hereford, and the expectation for him initially was probably quite low, and look where he is now playing for England. So I think there's a kind of a plethora of examples that people can kind of hang their hat on who've been released either at pro level or even struggling to find a club at non-league level, to show that it can be done and you can progress. You can find that club, the right fit for you, and progress from that point. Yeah, I think the great thing with our game in England is it's so in depth to so many levels. So you've got the Premier League, and then the rest of the Football League, and then below that you've got a whole host of teams dotted all over the country, and a brilliant framework and network that, as a player, you can potentially tap into.
Well, thank you for that. A little shout out there to Maidstone United, a club that's quite close to where I am down in Kent. And Chris Smalling obviously has made that club a little bit famous, and a few other FA Cup runs as well that come into it. That's always a good one to have coming in. Yeah, the overcoming from players who've come in from the non-league. I always like those stories. I like it on the way up, and I quite like it on the way down as well. So when players come into the end of their careers and they start to realise that they just love the game and they still want to be part of that game, and they might be 35, 40, or Jamie Cureton 50, still showing us up and banging the goals in. He's older than me and he's still just doing that. I don't know how he does that. But
you've also
got well done, Jamie.
You've also got Emil Heskey and Papa Cisse at Wythenshawe. I've just seen that come across the other day. Crazy.
Oh, mate, I want to go and watch them. We need to organise that.
Yeah,
I mean, that is proper
definitely.
Yeah. Wwhy not?
I think the great thing for people with it is players in the game and players in the game at non-league level, even those that feel they're struggling at the moment at non-league level, perhaps, is that I think as virtually any local non-league club you can go into, sort of like in my area, it'd be United Counties League teams, down sort of like the 9th level of football in England. I think invariably you go into any club like that and they will have sort of story of success of somebody who's kicked on, whether it be like a Chris Smalling or whether it be somebody who's not quite done it to that level but done it to a good level, within the league or even within the top end of non-league. The amount of times I go into non-league clubs, like I said before, I scout for Derby County, so I'm looking for players at sort of ready-made and players at first team level, championship level, to a new non-league ground and go and visit a new ground and watch a new team I've not watched before. And invariably you'll go into the clubhouse and there'll be the bar there and they'll be serving their chips out of a cabin or something, and there will be a shirt on the wall and the shirt will have the number and the name of the player, and it will be somebody so I think that is the inspiration for everybody at non-league level to think, well, other people have done it. I walk into a clubhouse, I walk into a bar and look, there's a shirt there, and I know in my local area there's plenty of teams with plenty of shirts up on the wall of people whose names will be familiar.
Yeah, too right. And also you get to say that I played against him, or I played with him when we were teenagers. I was better than he was. If I'd been lucky and I'd been scouted, I would have made it the way that he did. Yeah, we've all had those stories. But yeah, definitely. And I mean, when you're scouting, is there anything that you're particularly looking out for? So, when you're going into a club, I know you're not necessarily going to the lower end of the non-league. Kind of for Derby, give me an idea of kind of how far down you would go, what kind of clubs you would go and see, but also what are you looking out for in a player?
So invariably, I suppose the Derby's maybe not a brilliant example because we're invariably looking at leagues that are a similar level for Derby, and it'd be more of an exception than a rule to see somebody at a non-league level that we might get sent to see. But if word gets around and we build that knowledge base up of somebody non-league, we would go and watch them. Like I say, I dip into helping a non-league team at the moment and go and watching, and the level they're at is low in terms of Saturday non-league level. So I'll often go to a non-league game as a scout, not just as a watcher. And I've worked in the non-league before, so I've worked at kind of the National League North level and the level below that, the Northern Premier League level, and again was watching a lot of players. So I think in terms of there are certain elements that are consistent, whatever level you're scouting at. So you're obviously looking for talent, you're looking for ability, you're looking for somebody who has got the key attributes in the position and are strong in those key attributes. So if it's a goalkeeper, you obviously want somebody who can command their box potentially. You want somebody who can save, stop shots. You want somebody who's probably this day and age is a good distributor. So there's kind of basic key attributes that everybody will be aware of. Everyone will know. People play Football Manager, things like that. You'll know and you'll understand that, and you'll understand those key sort of like technical attributes. You might have good tactical nous, and I think again you see as you look at all the levels of football in England that things filter down. So you'll start to see tactical elements that have been implemented in the Premier League level will filter down over a period of 3, 6, 9 months. And people have got that tactical nous. But I think for me, again, a step up above non-league level, you're looking for that one key attribute that's maybe a little bit different from what the majority of players have got at non-league level. So thinking about the Vardy, the Bowens, people like that, it's speed. They've probably got that speed. And then thinking about Chris Smalling, who you mentioned, Pat, at Maidstone, and thinking about somebody like Tyrone Mings, who was at Yale Town, wasn't he? A lot of other players, but that physicality aligned to mobility and pace. So it's those elements that you look for more as you go down sort of the leagues into non-league. You're looking more at attitude, physical attributes, and sort of that ability to make a difference, that determination.
Do you think there's do you think clubs look for the full package? You think, I could build on him?
Yeah, I think that is a key element at non-league level. I think you can't go to non-league level and look for the full package. It's very difficult to find the full package. Those people who got the full package are already playing at league level. Somebody's seen them. Like there's the old cliche now. It is that there's no sort of secrets anymore. You can't go to any game now. You across the width and the sort of the length of the country, and you don't know something about some of these players. And even at lower non-league level, with the advent of the internet, going to know bits and pieces.
Yeah.
I think you can't, if you drop down to sort of non-league level to look for a player, you can't be too precious about them having every aspect, every element. I don't think Vardy did. When you look at Vardy, I know he's a classic case, and everybody maybe drives on about Vardy, and maybe that's what I'm doing right now. But his movement probably needed work at the time he was signed. Was it Fleetwood signed him? So it was kind of a progression there from there. The same with Chris Smalling, I think, is another good example where they're not the finished article when they get to pro level, but there's something that captures the imagination. A club's brave enough to take them. I mean, I remember there was a player I watched probably only second or third game when I was working for a non-league club playing at Ilkeston, Che Adams, and he was 17, 18, and I went to watch him, and it was probably, like I say, second or third game, and he was just electric. He was just, compared to everybody else on the pitch, his mobility and his pace and his determination to get onto the end of every ball. And I couldn't believe it when I looked and was like, this lad's 17 or 18 at the time as he was, as nobody even considered him at professional level. Lo and behold, you kind of talking 3 months later, I think it was Sheffield United are signing him, so really good example of, he wasn't again the finished article, but he had sort of, just that electric pace and mobility and desire to get on the end of every ball. He was running for everything, even if the quality to him wasn't great. So I think a lot of it is having that desire to, because it's difficult, can be difficult, can't it, at non-league level? In terms of you're turning out in front of like one man and his dog potentially sometimes, to have that attitude that just imagine you're being watched by somebody, because invariably you at some point you will be.
I
That's
think Ollie
one of the
Watkins
weirdest
would have been a
things.
better example. Ollie Watkins would have been a better example as me being a Villa fan, because he went to Blues, didn't he?
Yeah,
Che
we'll
Adams.
move on from that. A great player, Che Adams. Thank God he didn't play for Villa. So one of those things that I've often wondered, Tony, is when you're a scout. Obviously, we understand the different levels that you're looking at, but really, I wondered it quite a lot. As if you've got a player and they know there's a scout coming, there you need them to have the right attitude. We talked about that, and you're absolutely spot on, because you need to make sure that you're going to be professional with a lot of different things that you're doing. You need the determination. I'm guessing you, as a scout, also need to stop listening to John next to you is going, "Oi, look out for number 7, because he's the best you've ever seen, mate." And you're going, he can't touch the ball without backing up. So you're missing about that one, but you need someone who's got a bit of ability. You've already talked about that. It could be like the speed of someone like a Vardy, or the presence of someone like Chris Smalling. Obviously, the physical attributes of someone. I mean, when you look at the likes of Haaland, when he was 17, 18, and you look at the beast that he's now, you can still work on your physicality, and you're going to grow a little bit on that match, and you're there to see a particular player. That player, you're only going to see him once, and it could be him or her once, and you're going to be stuck in that situation going, I hope they haven't gone out last night. I hope they haven't just ruined it and just done a what was that lad who played for Man United who just had the best skills ever, but never made it because he didn't have the right person?
They all say he was the best.
Yeah. So Fergie always said he was the best player he'd ever seen, and he never got to anywhere because he didn't have the right attitude towards it. So when you turn up and you're going, I'm going to see this player for this one match, what's the one thing that you're looking out for more than anything else? Is it kind of can teach them the tactics, because they're not going to be the finished article, but what can we put more than important than anything else, or is it just a mix of it all?
It will depend on what the person you're out scouting for wants, and that might be different for a different team. So again, something I'd always say to I would say to kids, and I'd say to older players, the X team won't. There's so many different styles, so many different ways of playing, so many theories on the game, that just because you haven't made it at this team doesn't mean you're not going to make it at the next team. Going back to what you saying, that mind me sort of touching on those is one was
Ravel Morrison, that's his name.
one was
Ravel Morrison.
Just
come back.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Go on.
Super talented. Yeah.
Go on, Tony.
One was when I first started scouting, and I went with a scout, a more experienced scout, and he was kind of showing me the ropes. And we sat, and I think it was a game at Coventry actually. And we sat for a club, and he started asking this scout about a particular player. Do you know anything about this player? And what's he like and stuff. So the scout who I was with, the experienced scout, he was like really full in his praise of this player, saying how fantastic he was with the experienced scout. Said he's shit, he's crap. But he said that the scout who's asking the questions, is so lazy. That's all he does. He just comes to the games and asks everyone else's opinion and tries to canvass opinion. So he says every time I see him and I have a cup of tea with him or talk to him, I just give him a load of hot baloney, a load of rubbish about these players. I'll tell him the good ones are rubbish and the rubbish ones are good. So, yeah, you said about people standing next to you. Well, that taught me earlier about you've got to have your own opinion. You might have your bias, and that might be a challenge to you that you've got to think about, because you've got to say what you see, say what you see on the pitch, and don't go with others' opinion. And then the other, alluding to you saying about what people want, obviously the higher up the level you go, you probably got more resources, more ability to team. 2 or 3 years back, I was doing scouting for a non-league team, watched a player, really liked him. He was scoring a lot of goals and he looked a perfect fit for the team, his style of play. So I told the manager I left it till the summer and then signed the player in the summer. But by that time, he'd been partying away in Ibiza or somewhere other place. And this, he was awful. He couldn't run. The irony is, and I won't mention the player, is that he has since finished top scorer in a league at a very similar same sort of level. At that transition, you have got that ability, nothing set in stone, to actually work yourself back into a good position. And he just looks a really good player again, but he just kind of went off the rails. That 6 months I'd pitched him, so I had kind of a bit of egg on my face on that one, and it was a bit embarrassing because the manager phoned me up in sort of July time saying this lad is.
I'd done something similar to that. When I was on my scholarship in the first year. I was playing up front, and whoever else. No. And then come to pre-season, and I was so way off it from everyone else. I played up front. He stuck me at left back then. So I went from up front to left back.
Left back on the bench, mate.
I didn't put the work in. I love to do it at left back. Yeah.
It kind of is. You go striker, they go towards the left, and then you end up going in goal because you can't move. And you get a little bit lost when you're older. I mean, I'd be determined by what the club's saying anyway. So the club will send you out and go, right, go and find me that kind of a player, because we've got that sort of hole in what we want as a squad. For the players that probably can fit that in. Plus, like you said, the internet's brilliant because you've suddenly now got a lot more visibility. But having said that, so although you can put a bit of internet, there's a little bit of anyone can put a video on and do 25, 30, 50 keepy uppies, but can you do that consistently? Can you show what you're like on a pitch? I mean, some of the guys who've got skills and have got gazillion followers, will put it top corner from anywhere. So to me, there's an element there of actually turning up, actually having it consistently, because you never know who's watching, you never know who's going to talk about you. If there's a scout there worth their while, they're not just going to turn up and go, who's good? They're actually going to see you for themselves as well. That makes me think about and to present yourself in the best way. What's a massive turn off? So what, when you see in a player, when you go in to watch a player, what makes you think, we should stay well away from that one? I mean, obviously, apart from red card in the first 5 minutes, it doesn't help.
For me, it's constantly he was playing in a game, and he was clearly talented, but he's just on at his teammates all the while, and on his manager, and on at the referee. And for me, that's why you utilising the energy, the finite amount of energy that you've got doing all that when you could be something where you get fired up because you're throwing your racket type thing, metaphorically, obviously in football, doing that. But yeah, for me, that I don't like to see that, and that kind of puts me. That often puts me off a player, because I think you need to focus your energy on the game and on your abilities and making the most of those abilities in this 90 plus minute.
So if you're watching Bruno Fernandes down the lower leagues, you probably wouldn't ever recommend him to anyone at Derby, because I mean he's got the ability, he's got the skill, but oh my God, does he moan? So yes, that sort of attitude that you got. I mean, obviously, I'm that old. Dave was saying you were early 30s, bless you. I'm that old. I didn't even have, when I was playing late teens, early 20s, mobile phone issue for me, because wasn't really going to be a distraction. Wasn't really going to be spending my time taking selfies and sticking them on Facebook and whatever, and on Instagram. I was there to play the match. I was there to play the football. I was there to go and have a good time and see in terms of like the changes for the younger generations. Are they still focused on giving it their all in the match, or are they also that social media element to it that kind of disrupts them when you're wanting to talk to them?
I think goal celebration, social media. Alan Shearer's goal celebration used to be quite complex, didn't it? It used to seem quite complex back in the day with the one arm, but now they get more and more complicated. Last night, what struck me was how many of the players are in good shape, and how intense the game probably is now compared to what it was 10, 15 years ago. That again, the filter down from league level, the change in people's attitude and approaches to it, less drinking, more about looking after yourself, looking after your diet and things like that. And I think we've alluded to it, all three of us. Both of you guys have alluded to it. I was the same when I was kind of playing football. I didn't really look after myself, and I think back now, I'm kind of in my 50s now, and I look back now and think what an idiot I was. And it was not that I was ever going to play at potentially at pro level or anything like that, but just the amount of times I was carrying injuries that were probably just purely related to my inability to control sort of my diet and intake of alcohol and that type of kind of abusing yourself without realizing you're doing it from a sporting context. So I think that's probably changed now. It's physically a better. Technically, I think people are a bit more open to try and play and try and express themselves more technically as well. But I think there was always those people, but back in the sort of the 70s, 80s, even the 90s, they were considered to kind of be your mavericks, weren't they? I've always got to have one guy in the team who's a bit like that, like a Cantona or a Hoddle, or Stan Bowles going back a bit like further and stuff like that. But I think now you'll get more people who are able and willing to express themselves, and maybe more, again, filtering down from the top levels, more teams who are prepared to play a little bit more football than go and kind of just lump it long and go direct and play a percentage.
Yeah, definitely. I've seen that even down to like Step 7 and Sunday League. Everyone's trying to play like Man City, the Pep way, and there's more to it than just passing it out from the back. There's a lot more to it, isn't there? But yeah, you see a lot of... It
can be hilarious, can't it? You've seen a team that's sort of, Step 5 level trying to play out from the goalkeeper on a pudding of a pitch that would be more suited to been on a farm
Yeah.
somewhere and then wondering why they're conceding goals when the centre
Yeah.
forward nicks in and buries it in the sort of in the bottom corner. But yeah, I mean that can be funny sometimes. But you've got to applaud people, I suppose, for wanting to play the game on the grass.
Just going back on the distractions, from my experience being in the change rooms from when I was 16, 17, 18 to late 20s and now, phones are such a massive issue. Like I remember this one time last season or season before, I was sitting next to the keeper. We'd just come in and lost, and he was showing me his bets, and I was like, "We've just lost the game. Like, why are you bothered?" Like, and people like they're all on their phone, and that's in every fines list that I've seen like in recent years. Is phones away before 1 o'clock, and then you can't get them out till after the game. But yeah, betting, Snapchat at halftime, vaping on the bench and stuff like that. It's meant like some of the stuff is mad that I've seen in recent years. Yeah, so distractions I think have gone way up.
Yeah, I mean that's the sort of thing. Vaping on the bench. Yeah, I mean my generation we used to turn up with a fag in our hands, and then we'd probably have one at half time anyway. But the problem with not looking after yourself in that way. I mean, we had the problem with an older generation where physically we didn't know what the right foods were, the right drinks, or the right attitude, and obviously that all changed with Arsene when he turned up, and that sort of generation coming in and going, you can't behave like that, gents, because you're not gonna have the length of career that you want to have, and that filtered down all the way down into non-league. And you can see, I mean, I think there's a club that went all was it Forest Green Rovers that went all vegan. You've got teams that are actually looking at that sort of at the nutrition element to it as well, and we're going to do a podcast on that later on in our series, I'm sure. That doesn't mean the fans need to do that, because there is a good old burger and chips and extra dose of mayo on that. And a couple of pints to go on with it. But the players definitely look leaner, and they definitely look like they have that in them. Is there, for you, in terms of kind of a tip that you would give to the non-league players? Because I know if they're not seen by the time they're in their mid-20s, late 20s, it's going to be extremely rare for someone to make it at that stage. I mean, we're talking really, they'd probably make a film out of it. But it doesn't mean that they can't get to a level or a certain level, which might suit them. And as you said, Tony, you're never going to make it to like a Premiership level. Neither was I, not to that level. But it doesn't mean that you can't still live the dream. I'd very happily score in front of 3, 4, 5,000 people and still have the same feeling as you would with 30, 40,000 people. So what's your tip to sort of to structure with the long league players, and bearing in mind we are part of the non-league network, so I'm guessing the tip's going to be get yourself signed up on there, lads. Just wondering whether there's anything that you can say to them in terms of visibility, getting themselves known, getting themselves in your line of sight, really.
Yeah, what I would say is probably repeat what I said earlier. I think there'll always be somebody watching at some point. And I think the probably three things for me as takeaways for anybody playing at non-league level who's got aspirations to play either at higher non-league level or play at league level, is attitude every time. Every time you cross that white line, the attitude, fitness. If you've got to be able to get fit and maintain your fitness, that level of fitness now. It's so intense, the game at all levels now, that if you haven't got that level of fitness, you're a very rare character who can kind of survive in it or even thrive in it. The last one I'd say is I think I'm nicking a quote from an NFL coach. I think it's Pete Carroll, who was Seattle Seahawks, and has now moved on. I can't quite remember which team he's now coaching, but it might be Las Vegas or one of those. He always said, concern yourself, or he's been quoted as saying, sort of concern yourself more of your strengths than your weaknesses. And I think you've got to play up to your strengths. The start of our conversation here, where we talked about Vardy and his speed, we talked about Chris Smalling and his, his physical attributes, his mobility, and again, Bowen as well, and his, abilities to something. I think he's really concentrate. There's too many people too often, and probably in life, not just in football, you're more concerned about your weaknesses than actually playing up to your strengths and thinking about what makes me a good player and what are my strengths here, and what will a scout, where can I show my best to a scout or anybody who's watching the game who might be interested in potentially signing me.
That's a great shout. I think you're absolutely right. A lot of the times you do worry about whether or not you're showing your best side, and then you don't focus on what you're good at. You end up showing some of the stuff that you need to be working on behind closed doors and not when there's a scout watching you. By the way, that quote that you took, it's from Ted Lasso, so you definitely nicked it from there.
He nicked it from Pete Carroll.
No, I don't know if it was from there. It just made me laugh as you were saying it. I was thinking, I'm sure it would be something like that. I mean, to me, it's fascinating hearing from your side, talking to you as a scout, because you there is a buzz. You knew when there was a scout. I don't know what it was like for you, Dave, but for me, when I knew, I mean, I did my formative years in Belgium. I always played like a Belgian defender, so I never ever kind of pulled out of a tackle. Hence why the knee really messed up later on. But you had an element of buzz when you knew there was a scout from Anderlecht coming over and watching you. Everyone sort of knew, and everyone played up at that little bit better. And it was, you could tell the ones who were or had it, because they could play to a level that was just slightly above what they normally did. And then you could tell the ones who just mentally would struggle because they got nervous and they tensed up and they would get frustrated and they would get irritated, and then they would turn on their teammates. And actually, that's one of the things when I did go to Anderlecht, was one of the things there they taught you straight away is your team, and you're the sum of all of you put together. So the second you start, you weren't, anywhere near the Ajax philosophy, but it was sort of that structure. You had a buzz. You knew that there was going to be a scout around, and that scout was looking at one person, but that didn't mean that you didn't have a chance. And that's something that I think is quite helpful as well to our non-league networking. But also, you never know, they might be watching someone else, but if they're decent scouts, they're going to go, actually, I wanted to come for number 6, but number 7's looking pretty decent. Let me have a look at what they're all about. I'm guessing you've done that a million times.
I'm watching the match for Derby. I'm perhaps given a single specific player of the 22 that are on the pitch, and you watch him, we're interested in that player. We'll always be watching the other 21 about somebody. There might be something that I'm watching that player, but another player out on the pitch there is doing something that I think aligns really well with what we're after at Derby, and always will flag those. So they'll go in, watch the guy I was asked to watch, but then add a short report or notes on the other player, and then that might come back to me to go and watch him, or it might go to another scout at the club. Either on video or live. It's happening game by game.
Do you have specific areas to look at, Tony? Like, do you have, so for Derby, do you say you'll only go and watch forwards, or is it any player that you're going to see?
No, I could scout any person will do. I know Brighton do. It's 2 sort of high profile examples. positional scouting.
Yeah.
You know, they'll have guys who will just watch a central midfielder. I suppose the other thing is, and again, that kind of loops back to what I was saying earlier about every team's different. So if you get rejected by one team, don't automatically think that everyone's going to reject you. Again, is that some scouts are strong in certain positions, some scouts are potentially weaker, and they're not as good at picking. You know, I might be really good at picking a centre forward. I might be not so hot at picking a fullback. So again, it's that, and that kind of comes back a little bit to attitude and trying to go across. You're never going to have a good game every time, but going across the white line with the right mindset that, you know, this could be the day that you're a fullback and you're picked up by a scout who's looking for your type of fullback, and he's good, he's knowledgeable in that position, and he picks you out as a potential target for his or her club.
Yeah, brilliant. I listen, Tony. I think we've gone round a couple of times, and the thing is, it's a mix of everything, isn't it? You're going there to go and watch a player, but you might be able to see other ones there. You know, the set you a bit of insight as to what happens off the pitch, because it's not just on the pitch that you're looking. You want to see what their attitude's like off it. A bit like when you go for a job interview and they ask for a reference and they check on that side as well. And then you mentioned the attitude, you mentioned the determination, the ability, the physical element that you can grow on. And one thing that we haven't really spoken about is the tactical element of the game. With a player can learn those tactics, but what we have said is the top level is starting to make its way down to the lower levels now. So they're all following similar tactics, and people want to express themselves on the pitch. So it makes a lot of sense to our audience really to listen out to your advice on that one. And thank you obviously for coming on and talking to the non-league network. We encourage people to come on because what we want to do, what Dave wanted to do, and I think Dave, you could probably come back on this one again, but it's been the link between players who are looking for clubs who are looking for players, coaches and staff who are looking for clubs and players to get involved with, and then obviously it's the whole community in and around that, because it is a huge community of people who are actually interested in what I call the wonderful game. It gives you such pleasure and horrible moments, but gives you such pleasure to be involved in that. That, you know, the non-league network is really that sort of structure and community we want to put together. And well done, Dave, for coming up with it in the first place, because I think it's starting to make a lot of sense. Dave, is there anything that you'd like to add as well?
Yeah, obviously, I've started this. I don't think I spoke about it at the start, but I actually done a scholarship for a non-league team when I was 17, 18 for Chasetown. They had a couple of FA Cup runs. You might have seen them a few years ago. But yeah, I left there and there was no direction. Like, obviously there was America opportunity, but other than that, there was nothing. I ended up going to Sunday pub football, and then from there, like, I turned 18, the drink come in, and got less fit, and just pub football, and just you drop down to their standards. So that's like another reason why I wanted to create this and just create as many opportunities as possible for players in non-league. But also on the flip side, seeing clubs fold due to financial issues or other things, like, that's just horrible to see. And there's just no help from the higher leagues. And I think by building this community, everyone can help each other. So if there is a club that's struggling, I'm sure there's ways and ideas that there's a club higher than them that have come up with, and other ways for them to build revenue to try and stay alive. And yeah, that's how the reason why I wanted to build it. Opportunities for players and help struggling clubs as well. And I think by building that community, it'll bring everyone together and just improve the whole sector.
That's great. Thanks, mate. I mean, the thing is, we're just trying to make people aware of it. and the danger you have is that people are going, oh yeah, stop banging on about it, stop getting us to kind of to sign up or to link up. But the reality is we are stronger together, and it makes it stronger as a network, and it makes a lot more sense kind of because the money, the stupid amounts of money that you get at the top level, it doesn't filter down to by the time you get to, the step 2, 3, 4 elements. You're talking completely, it's a different world. So yeah, well done to you on setting that up. Tony, thank you for your time. Thank you for putting all of this together. You have got a business yourself as well that I don't know if you mentioned at the start, but how does anyone reach you, contact you, or if they want to be interacting with you, or anyone that's actually seeing this podcast thinking, actually, I want to have a word with Tony because seems like a decent bloke, or he should come and see my son because he's the best thing since sliced bread.
Yeah, if I get too many of them, I won't be able to meet those demands. But yeah, I'm on social media, Instagram. I'm on Tony Kinnear football, Tony_Kinnear_football, and I've also got my website, which is pivot6.co.uk, and that's the business that I run on football and focus really on scouting, analysis, and recruitment. So if anybody wants to get in contact with me, that they can get in contact through either of those routes, and I'm more than happy to even informally just chat to people about football at any level they're interested in talking about, and that's how they can get hold of me.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, gents. I think it's come to kind of a natural conclusion anyway. So, really quite a good podcast. Tony, you've been part of our very first podcast with the Non-League Network. So you can always put that on your CV as being, I was the first one there. And you can say, I was lucky enough to meet Dave and Pat. And then, from then onwards, we'll be scouted. Yeah, we scouted you out, sunshine. So we can go from there, mate. All right, thanks, gents.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you, guys. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Just got to stop recording it now. End recording.